Me and the boys were sitting around drinking, we was talking about things that we was thinking, when all of a sudden what comes out of Bill's mouth? Said I'm getting old and fat and slow, and I don't recover like I did before from nights of rabble, rousing and too much fun. Well, I looked around and we all agreed, and I had a drink and I ordered 3, and I staggered back to do it all again. And we made an oath on a rum and coke with the best intention, I'm sure you know, that we would stop this living in excess. We're gonna have one more party, one more special occasion. Do it Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, holidays and weekends. We can have one more party. There's more hell we should be raising. One more party now, one more.
Good day, everyone. So what we're going to be doing is one of the big things that we try to do in this acreage, which is conserve costs where we can, try not to do any wasteful spending. Way we do that is we have our Kia. We love that thing, for even though it's being a hybrid, it hasn't really cost as much of anything for maintenance. Fuels obviously really well. We've taken that to Vegas a couple times. Like in the few years we've had it, we're almost hitting 150,000 kilometers, and it's, to be honest, we have no complaints about it. The Dodge Ram, she's cost a little bit, but she's a huge pig on fuel, and since I have to drive to and from the city all the time, I bought myself 2005 Mitsubishi Lancer Ralliart. Not much better on fuel, well, compared to other 4-bangers, but it's a lot better on fuel than the old Ram is. But because I was pinching pennies, I bought a car that needed a lot of work, and essentially what happened was a little bit of a buyer beware. Whatever the guy I bought it from, all the stuff that he fixed, I am now refixing. And one of the big things is going to be the clutch. So it's some of the reasons that I can tell that this girl needs a new clutch. So we got a lot of slipping. So what that kind of sounds like is I'm driving down the highway, down the road, give it a good shot of gas, say if I'm merging or something like that, and the engine revs and the speed does not increase. So you just hear it spinning, so I usually let off the gas. It's, I could probably baby it for some longer, but I mean it's dying anyways. The last thing I want is to be stuck on the side of the road, and it's super screwed. Some of the other things, when it's really cold, you can hear it just sliding and grind. Like, it's not good. You can literally just hear it. It sounds horrible. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the transmission out, swap out the clutch, get the flywheel machined, and yeah, slap a new one in. Probably going to change, I am going to change the rear seal at the same time, because you know what, I'm there and it's probably leaking a bit. Either way, if it does start to leak, I don't want to have to pull the whole thing again just to change it. So it's usually a good idea, if you're changing your clutch, change your engine rear seal anyways. Why not? So here's what we're doing to get started. So I jacked up the front end, I chalked the rear end there, I got it sitting on jack stands on the actual frame, and what I'm going to do next is I'm going to drain the oil and take off that tire, so it's going to be a lot easier to get to. Why you want to drain the oil, I know for a lot of transmissions why I'm going to do it, but because I am going to end up pulling the axle, and to do that it's going to just essentially dump oil everywhere, so we want to avoid that. So let's crawl underneath, show you where I'm draining from. So here we are underneath the car. Here's the driver's side. So here's my transmission right here. Right here, there's the engine. So kind of look around up top here through the shadow. That there looks like that there to be about the fill plug. And this guy over here, this big one, that's the drain. So what I'm gonna end up doing is I was gonna use, looks like, got myself a big 15/16 wrench. Fits on there nice. Most of this shit looks metric, but that'll do just fine. Now I'm not gonna show it because it's good. It is gonna pour out of there and make a god awful mess. So I'm gonna put the phone down so that I can kind of get that up there, at least for the initial bit where it's gonna just splurt out. Try to catch as much as I can in my bucket. So we'll come back after I do that. I'm gonna end up taking off that wheel, and we'll resume after that. All right, so we got the wheel taken off. Easy, we just put it over there. I'm gonna take the nuts, slap in there so we don't lose them. So the next thing that we're gonna have to do is I'm gonna be pulling off this caliper, and I'm gonna be, I don't know if I'm gonna have to do it or not. I may have to. I'll look it up. But this nut has to come off because this is holding the actual axle in place. So I'm gonna have to try to figure out a way to get that. I'm either gonna jam it, I do have an impact. I don't know if it's going to actually be able to knock this off, but we'll see. Alright, so that little impact wasn't enough to kind of yank it off. So here's what I got set up to pull this nut. I got a pry bar, kind of in between those two studs, along there on the hub. My big ass breaker bar. Make sure the steering wheel was locked. Now I did able to get it to crack, and just she is going to be on there tight. So safety first. But we got her. Now I was going to finish pulling that nut right off. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to be doing, so right here we have our 2 bolts here. You can use these to adjust camber and all that, especially for wheel alignment. I'm essentially going to loosen these guys off, pull them out, just so that I can just go ahead and swing and move this a bit, so that I can punch this guy out. I'm going to get a hammer when I punch this to kind of tap on there. I don't want to hit right on the end of the threads. I don't want to wreck them, but that's what I'm doing. You can see that they already have this up here. There is an issue. Again, this car is rusted all hell. I brought it in to get a wheel alignment. They couldn't align it, and they had to get one of these little special adjustment bolts. But other than that, we'll figure what size this is. These down here, stock is 19mm on this car. They're tight as all hell, so I'm going to get them on just, because I don't really do much of my own wheel alignment except for like the race car, because I can, if I'm a little bit off, doesn't matter, I'm going to hit something, it's going to get messed up anyways. I will be taking this guy in to actually go get the wheels aligned, just because I'm going to be taking it apart. Just so everyone knows, whatever I do on this side, I'm going to be doing to the other side, which essentially is going to be, take the tire off, spin that nut off, take those 2 guys out, pop the axles out, and that's going to be that. I'll show you guys what the other one looks like after it's all done. So in case anyone's curious what a camber bolt looks like and does, this is what it is. Kind of sucks with the lighting here, but essentially you can see that how it's got this right here. It's almost like a cam bolt. As you can see on the bottom that it's flush against the bolt, and the top it's more. So when you have it stuck in like this, because it moves forward and back for the top, right, to give you that angle. So as you twist and turn this, it allows, instead, like when you turn it, it's gonna either push it out more or in more. So instead of, because normally you just put the bolt to go straight through, you can only slide whatever it has for that kind of, like whatever it has for play, and you reef it up. But this way, as you twist and turn, and it moves that, so if I have it like that, so it can push or whatever, that way as it is. So when you go ahead and adjust it just by literally turning that bolt to actually move it out and in. You see a lot of performance cars where you want a little bit more, or any sort of track car where you're going to actually take it and you want a little more camber or less camber depending what you want. You can have one in the top or the bottom, whichever one you kind of, wherever you need more movement, or you can put 2 in so you can really start to put a lot more of an angle. On the Jetta outside for my oval track car, I got 2 in there so I can get as much camber as I can out of that right front tire. But here's what this is, and as you can see, now we're loose, and since I'm not going to be able to get in that same position, that's why I'm going to take it in, and I'm going to have to end up getting the old persuader to thump this guy, to kind of push it through, and because now I got a little bit of movement, hopefully this guy will go through, and then I'll put the bolts back through just to kind of hold everything in place so I don't lose them up there, and we'll get on to the next side. And then we get into the other fun stuff. We're going to start taking stuff up here, because we're going to have to do an engine mount, all that other good stuff. Well, trying to get this side off is not so well. What I have to do for the other side, I tried with this one. I ended up having to put the nut on, see how, just a bit so I can hammer on that. But as you can see, she ain't going nowhere. So I'm going to leave that for a second. And we're going to start to look to see what we have to take off up on top. So that plate there at the hole, that's going to come off because that's one of the mounts. Now, if I'm not mistaken, right in here, this line, can't really see too well following it, but we got to be able to disconnect that, just because that goes all the way up to the brake mass cylinder, which is also the mass cylinder for the clutch. And we're going to have a look-see up top. Now, the other big thing that I'm going to have to do is support the bottom of the engine. So I'm literally just going to take a jack stand with some timber to help hold that up. And I'm gonna start looking for everything that's kind of all attached up here. I got a shift linkage right here. I gotta see what's gonna be the best way to take that apart without having to cause a big issue. What I'm thinking is, without having to mess any adjustments, you got those clips. If I pull that and pull it out, that could probably be there. That'll be undone. Or not, we'll see. And my bad. And then I got a little, looks like a little connector there. This big line. So we got this line here. This is what for the actual clutch. So we'll have to pop it from there. And down in there is where it's connected. You should be able to follow that real easy. We got that connector right there. We'll just have to pop that out. And that's pretty much all as I can see. Main motor mount right there. Or sorry, tranny mount. We got that guy we're going to have to undo. And there's another one back over there. Now, like I said, because we're going to have to prop up the engine. Now, the other thing that I'm kind of looking at is because on the axle, on the passenger side, oh, son of a... Don't forget your light. See, it goes up. And you can see as we're trying to come out, that boot kind of slipped a bit, so that's not good. But where the boot or the axle attaches into that big thing, right, there's axle, goes into that, and that's connected to the motor. So I'm gonna have to look into that because that's probably gonna have to get undone too to slide it out. And when I slide it all out of place, or get ready to, then we just gotta start taking out bell housing bolts, and those are gonna be pleasant as well. But that's what we're doing. I'm going to start taking some stuff off top, see how that goes. And yeah, because I'm tired of beating on that for now. So we'll move on to the next thing. I'm also going to invest in some help. Someone who's actually done more front engine. Like I said, I've worked as a mechanic before, but on big trucks. Those are all rear-wheel drive, just like God intended them to be. And those seem to be a lot more simple, a lot less stuff. But that's also why I prefer to work on trucks instead of cars than have to deal with all this. But I'm going to take this guy off, and we're going to have a little bit of a look-see, see what's underneath. And yeah, start disconnecting some other stuff. All right, so until then. All right, so we kind of just time warped ahead. We got the transmission out. Some of the things to kind of note too. So up top, you can't really see down here. There's my hands are everywhere. The actual shift linkage. We took that off, as well as there's something on top. It looked like it was the speedo. This sensor here. In order to get to that clip, it had a little wire we had to pull out. So we actually undid this, pulled the whole thing out, took the clip off, put it back in. There's another clip there. Pretty much anything that was attached, we just took it off. So, you know, it's kind of self-explanatory. One of the pain in the asses, you can kind of see back there. A little bolt that's just kind of hanging out. Right, boop, right there. So that's the side motor mount. We couldn't get the one bolt that goes through. That's all blurry. We couldn't actually get that, so we had to take the 4 bolts off the side, and we just kind of fan-angled it out. So we plopped the whole thing out. We're gonna get a second jack, floor jack, to kind of slide it back in. So here it is on the inside. I've already changed up the release bearing. Here's the old one. It's all mangled to hell. The fork wasn't too bad. Now there's a little clip on here. I don't know if you can see it. You literally just pop it off. Get a screwdriver, pop it in, comes off. This guy comes off, and then when you put it back on, it only goes together the one way. Just make sure the wire, it goes through that hole, and there's also a hole on the actual release fork. So I did that. I put a little bit of the grease that came with the clutch, so I put it just around here for the release bearing, a little bit on the shaft. Don't put too much on, because if that's when it goes fast, it's all gonna just shoot out, and you don't want to get that on your clutch, because then you just essentially ruin your clutch. As soon as that grease gets on the friction material, that's no good. So one other big thing, there's the flywheel. Got it all resurfaced, looking nice and shiny. We're gonna put it through the clutch, either get a new flywheel or get it resurfaced. For this one, I get a resurfaced. It's about 110 bucks at a local machine shop. It's about $500-600 because the only flywheels I could find for this are performance aftermarket ones. I'm not dumping $600 on a flywheel. I've already determined when this thing fails next, it better be catastrophic because I'm done fixing this car. Now in there, you can kind of see the crank. Essentially what I did, here's the main crankshaft seal. Might as well change this at the same time because, I mean, in order to change it, it's a $3 to $5 seal. That's going to be like $1,000 worth of labor if you ever have to take it in. Because you literally have to take it, drop the transmission, take it all out in order to change this guy. So, as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts on the side, the 2 on the bottom for the oil pan. So what I did do is I did drop the oil. I used that container there. As you can tell, it's full. I thought there wouldn't be, I forgot that I topped up the oil. Normally this thing has no compressor, so it burns half its oil off. But because I just recently topped it up, we filled it. We made a god-awful mess down there. That's why I'm not down there right now. Got most of it cleaned up. But drop the engine oil so that way when you go ahead to pull the main seal, because this part here actually is on the oil pan. So when you pull it off, because as you can tell, it's on a bit of an angle because it's dropped down too. You don't want to be pissing oil all over yourself. So take out those 5 bolts, take out those 2. I just cleaned it all up. I pounded the new seal in. Just use a hammer, and because I don't have a rubber mallet, I've literally got a rubber hose. It's soft like this is. Put a little bit of lubricant on the outside. Depending on what your rear seal is, this one is just that brown Viton stuff. Lubricate it, just helps it slide in. You're not going to have to worry about cutting the outside edge. There's some of them, they have that PTFE, whatever, some sort of stuff on it that's on the edge of the seal. You're not going to want to put oil on that because what it is, usually, like I remember it was like a blue. That's actually going to act as, you know, the seal lubricant, whatever it needs as it goes in. So when you push it in, it's going to rub off on there. If you put the oil, it's not going to properly seal. So make sure you know what kind of oil, what kind of seal you have and what everything you need. If it's just a regular rubber seal, put some lube on just so it goes in. So you don't, last thing you want to do is worry about crimping it. The way I put it on, so here's the outside. You can see all the redding, stuff like that. It's got the lip with the little spring to hold it. Now all I'm going to do is I am going to put some oil on here on the lip. When I push it back onto the rear of the crankshaft, the other thing I'm going to do, instead of using the paper gasket, I just went and bought some gasket maker. I use synthetic oil, so I use this. You know what, a lot of times you'll probably find with just that blue stuff. Go ahead, you know, read, see what it says. You know, this is just because it does use synthetic oil. This thing is kind of puking a little bit, so I kind of want to do the best I can. It's really good for the extremes that we go to, like minus 54. It's not too often we get it out here, but it gets cold, so this way it can handle the cold, it can handle the heat. If this engine gets to over 260 Celsius, I've got bigger problems. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to just kind of put a little bit of oil. I'm going to put a thin layer of silicone all the way around the edge, or on this piece here, the flange. Go around the bolt holes. A little bit on the bottom. We're just going to go on the oil pan. I made sure I cleaned off all in there. Can't really see too well. See if I can do some of this. There we go. So I clean up around the edge as well. I'm still going to clean up. There's a little bit of silicone along the oil pan there. Be careful when you're cleaning, because that is right now you have access to your actual oil pan. You don't want to drop crap in there. So I cleaned it. I literally just use like a green scrubby pad, SOS. Sometimes you can use, like on the oil pan, it's metal. You could probably get away with using a little bit of emery cloth to help clean it. But that soft metal, I'll try not to. It takes a little more time, but I'm not going to have to worry about marring it, scratching it in a bad way, so it's going to leak. So I'm going to put the silicone on the piece, push it into place. It says so I'm going to put it on just kind of finger tight, let it sit for about an hour so it can actually set up. After that hour of letting that stuff there set up, then I'll be able to torque it down nice and tight. So while that's happening, like I'll put it on, tighten it up by fingers, make sure it's on there nice and flat and even. I'm gonna open up the box. That's right there. There's the axles. Make sure that's right. Get everything else ready, all set up to good to go, and then I'll actually torque it down to what it's supposed to be. I'm gonna look up, see what it needs to be. To be honest, for these, I'm just gonna go about that tight, 3/8 drive. It's really small, just a 10 mil socket to kind of pull those guys off. So, you know, I don't want to strip them. Don't want them to be too loose. Not too tight. So I'll put that on, and then we're gonna torque up the flywheel. Don't quote me on this. I think for this car, I'm gonna have to double check. It's about 80 foot-pound. When I put the flywheel on, I got some red Loctite. Red Loctite might be a little bit of overkill, but like I said, I'm hoping this thing never comes off. Use some form of Loctite unless, you know, the owner's manual specifically says not to. Blue will generally be fine. I'm going with red because it's gonna hold real nice. But that's pretty much it for now. I'm not gonna video as I'm in there. There's not much room. If you want to get one of those videos, look it up. I'm just kind of documenting how I'm going through with it. But all in all, pretty good. Whenever you're pulling any transmission, front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, literally just, you know, if it's attached to it, it has to come off. Because that transmission needs to come down and completely out of the way, regardless of what kind of motor it is. So we'll just time warp to when I've got the flywheel back up, and I'll show you what I'm gonna do to torque it for jamming it. Okay, so we time warped to a lot. We got the transmission in. I didn't video it because I don't really know how we got it in. It was a whole lot of raise the engine, lower the engine, raise the tranny, lower the tranny, tilt it this way, tilt it that way, kind of get it in. The one thing I can recommend, get a friend. Get someone who knows what they're doing, someone with a little bit of experience. I've never done a front wheel drive car before. It was a huge pain in the ass. It literally took me, I couldn't do it by myself. I got a friend to come and help. And yeah, there was a lot of pushing and twisting. Even, you can see down there on the mount, where the mount goes, we had the strap with the hook. And just whatever we could to get it into place. You know, a few things to note when you are getting it in. Like, one thing we did have to do is we actually took that mount right off with like these actual bolts down here. There's the 4. We yanked those guys off to get the mount completely out of the way. So if you're having problems with this car specifically, you know, 05 Lancer Ralliart, get rid of that guy. It's just because it was binding up on the frame on the outside, the back of the transmission, or I guess, you know, towards the back of the car, where I guess that would be the differential. That was hitting the cross member for the frame. And yeah, I really don't know how we got it in. So essentially all I'm doing now is I'm just kind of putting everything back in. So all the bolts, putting them around the bell housing, the rear motor mount, that's way back there. You can't see it, trust me, it's there. Remember how we had to take it off? We couldn't pull the bolt, like kind of how, like compared to this one. This one we just pulled that bolt out. We couldn't do it on the back because we couldn't get to it. So we took the 3 bolts holding it onto the side. We yanked those. So I just slipped those back in. The last motor mount, that's gonna be the last thing that goes in, which is that big cross member there. So all I'm doing now is just putting things back in. So I'm gonna start by slipping in the clutch, where everything was attached on the top, plug everything back in, put the shift linkage back on, and just kind of go from there and keep going until I don't have any bolts left over. Hopefully I don't have any, and hopefully I'm not missing any. I think there's one transmission bolt that is currently out and about. But I'm hoping when I start to clean up some of this mess, put stuff away, that we'll find it. If not, we'll yank one out, quick stop the bolt supply, we'll just get another one and throw it in. So I'll time warp kind of the end when I start to put the axles in. Alright, so we slip the axles in. That is literally just pushing it into place. Now I know all the axles are not necessarily the same. So if you look at these ones, you can see on the end here, we've got this little C-clip. You push it in just past, and you'll feel it kind of thunk in. You want to make sure right at the edge here, like this is because there's on the transmission, there's a seal. You want to make sure that actually gets pushed into the seal. It's very audible, you know, just kind of push right on here, and all of a sudden you hear that thunk, you'll feel it, you know, that's in place. You put that in. I put a bunch of anti-seize on these here, so I don't have the same issue, because that was the problem we had. She just mushroomed to hell, so we had to cut the nut off. You know what? It popped out anyways. Time for new ones. So easy enough. Slip it into place, push it in. Like I said, they're not all the same. On my Jetta, it's an older 85, my piece of crap race car, where it connects on the CV joint, instead of it just kind of pushing on there, it's actually got a flange, and it's got it's got about like 6 bolts. And because it's Volkswagen, it actually has special ends that I have to buy a special tool for. To put that into place, you have to get it in, and then you have to bolt it in while keeping you have to kind of hold the wheel there so it doesn't spin as you're trying to torque it up. Huge pain in the butt. These are nice, they just slip on. After that, I put the wheel on, torqued it up, not once, not twice, but thrice, and then this guy. So this is the nut. Right now, the torque reading I got is supposed to be about 180 foot-pound. My torque wrench only goes up to about 150. So I got them torqued to 150. I got to take it in to get the wheel alignment done anyways. I don't know if you remember, because on this one I had the adjustable camber nut or camber bolt. So I'm going to take it in. It's whatever, $100. It's going to be a lot better than me with a level. These guys get down to a point whatever of a degree, so it's worth it for me. Got both sides done. That the same thing. Everything on top has been put into place. Bolted that back in, put that back into place. The shift linkage, that's all reattached. All the little clips, stuff like that. You know, it's always a good idea to take a picture beforehand in case you forget. Can't see any extra bolts, so that's good. We're not really missing any bolts, so that's really good. Now it's just a matter of, I got to put on that last cross member, which has that last motor mount. That's going to go underneath. Put that stupid plastic piece back in place. And then Bob's our uncle. Fill it full of oil, because remember I drained out of the transmission and out of the engine. It's a good time to change the engine oil anyways. And then, yeah, we'll start it up and then go for a bit of a drive. Just remember, because it is a brand new clutch, the first thing you don't want to be doing is just a huge burnout. You do got to break it in. So just, some gentle, relaxed driving. A little bit of it, when you're going, it's going to, let it slip, kind of work itself in. It's got brand new mating surfaces on the friction plate where it hits the flywheel and the pressure plate. And yeah, we got to do that. I already pushed the clutch. It goes in, it comes back, so that means the springs are working. I don't feel any clunking, anything like that. It feels smooth. I am going to end up bleeding the hydraulics there. It's a hydraulic clutch, hydraulic brakes. And you know what? I'm going to just make another video of that, because I got to replace a rear rotor on this guy too. So I'll just do the whole kit and caboodle on my next video, or whenever I edit and put it on. But that's pretty much her in a nutshell. So that's going to be the end of this video. I'm going to be honest, I'm just tired of filming and putting it together. It's literally just putting the last things in place. Just big things to note, take note of where everything came apart, where it goes back together. I like to put the actual, slip the bolts into where they actually have to go, like leave them in the holes in the slot, stuff like that. So it's a lot harder to lose them. You can still lose them, but make it a little bit easier like that. Take pictures beforehand of before and after. So if you don't remember where something goes, then you can always put it back. And yeah, just little things. I mean, every transmission is going to be a little bit different, but they're all still pretty much the same. You're going to have to disassemble whatever's attaching the clutch, whatever's attaching the shift linkage, the axle, front wheel drive, rear wheel drive. That axle's going to have to come off, or not the axle, but it'll either be the drive shaft for rear wheel drive, CVs for front wheel drive. And you know what? If it looks like it's going to be a pain in the butt, what's worse, taking the part off so it'll fit in and out easier, or leaving it on and just kind of maneuvering. Just take it off. Save yourself some time. Yank it off, because it's going to be a lot harder, because it comes out a lot easier than it goes back in. Because when it comes out, it's pretty much going to flop out for no matter what kind of transmission you do. Same thing for engines. So get stuff out of your way. And when you get in, get a friend. You're right. You don't need ego. Go ahead. Get a couple, one or two people. Prefer people who have a schmick of what they're doing. And then just be careful. Don't put your fingers where you wouldn't put your wiener. Use jack stands. Other than that, that's all I got. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.